This blog is all about traversing the Lahaul Spiti circuit, which we did between 15th June to 26th June. On the first day, that is 15th June, I started from Moradabad for Chandigarh, covering a distance of 343 kilometers in 5 to 6 hours by a train and checked into CRPF officers' mess, Gaddi, the organizer of a trip and my batchmate, Dr. Hanspal. The next day, we were supposed to leave for Narkanda, which was 173 kilometers from Chandigarh, and we took 5 to 6 hours to cover that distance. We started by a tempo traveler to Narkanda, which is at an altitude of 8,100 feet and is situated on the Hindustan-Tibetan road. On the way, stopping at points for photo shoots and for lunch. The military hospital, the orchards covered with nets protecting them from hailstorms, overcrowded Shimla city with traffic jams and some beautiful buildings with red roofs interspersed in greenery all around did draw our attention. It was our first day, so all were chirpy and were intermingling with each other, ready to pose, seeing the camera. After crossing Shimla, the lush green pine and devdars provided the dense green cover to the mountains. It was a spectacular sight and differentiated Himachal from Uttarakhand. By the evening, we reached Narkanda, checked into the hotel and proceeded to the PWD guest house to explore if we could get a glimpse of snow-covered peaks. But luck was not on our side, as it had suddenly become cloudy. Narkanda is known for its undulating natural beauty and skiing in winters. We spent some time clicking each other with the beauty of Narkanda as a backdrop before proceeding to have dinner. On the third day, that is 17th June, we were supposed to move to Raksham Sangla from Narkanda, covering a distance of 167 kilometers over a period of 6 hours. Sangla was at an altitude of 8,900 feet and the temperatures expected were maximum 25 degrees centigrade and minimum 15 degrees centigrade. As we came out of our rooms into the balcony, we were mesmerized by the beauty that existed all around us, for there were floating clouds and mist all around, multiplying the beauty that existed many a folds. And I was reminded of an old Bollywood song carrying a spiritual meaning. संसार की हर शय का इतना ही फसाना है, एक धुंध से आना है, एक धुंध में जाना है. And I decided to make a time lapse of the natural beauty that existed all around before proceeding for the journey. It took me about 1.5 hours for the time lapse, and then we proceeded for the breakfast before boarding our tempo traveler for the journey onwards. We had decided to go to the Hathu Peak, but the rains and the slippery road made us drop the idea. So As we proceeded along the Sutlej river, the beauty of the mountains and the flowing river made us stop at various points for the shots and for absorbing the picturesque beauty that existed all around. There were laborers and engineers working hard on a hydroelectric power project for Himachal's development as on the river Sutlej, and we saw them as we drove along the river till we entered Baspa Valley at Karcham. En route Sangla is Saharan, which houses architecturally beautiful 800 years old wooden temple of Bheemkali having wooden, brass and silver doors. This is the same temple where human sacrifices were made 2 centuries ago. We were made to deposit our cameras and don yellow caps before entering the main temple. No leather items were allowed inside the main temple. On the way to Sangla, the roads are carved, cutting caves through the rocks, making the journey more enthralling and interesting. At Karcham, there is a hydroelectric power station on Baspa River, and from here on we drove along Baspa River for Sangla. The river had emerald colored water and it looked amazing. Sangla is situated at 8,900 feet and is situated in the Baspa Valley of Kinnaur district. The valley is blessed with apple orchards, apricots, walnuts, cedar trees, glacial streams, the fir trees and the meadows. Sangla truly is heaven on earth. It has a sangam of Hinduism and Buddhism, equating it to Zen culture. We checked into the hotel, where the hotelier tried to cheat us by giving us 3 sickening rooms which were smelling, with no views, probably the staff rooms, out of the 7 that we had booked. We had to pursue the matter with him with some financial negotiations to get proper rooms. The beauty all around was mesmerizing, cheering our tired minds, and we clicked incessantly before having our dinner and going to bed. On day 4th, that is 18th June, the excitement mounted up as we saw the free-flowing Baspa River from a balcony with snow-covered peaks in the backdrop, and the free-floating clouds added to the beauty. We hurried up to the terrace for some photography, took some splendid shots and videos of the birds, free-flowing river and snow-covered peaks. We appeared to be in a dreamland and did not want the dream to end. Time constraints and the itinerary forced us to the breakfast table before proceeding to Chitkul, the last inhabited village at the Indo-Tibetan border. It is at an altitude of 11,320 feet and was 9 kilometers away, and we required 1 hour to cover up the distance. The temperatures expected there was between 12 to 18 degrees centigrade. The approach was through a slender winding road with picturesque landscapes all around, of streams finding their way down to join the Baspa River, of waterfalls and vast Baspa riverbed at the foothills of mountains. We received a warm welcome by the ITBP. Thanks to DIG Dr. Hanspal. It is an all-year-round working base for the army, and the Jawans are trained and posted from this base to the border. We then proceeded to the river bank of Baspa River. Since it started raining, we could not stay there for long and took some selfies and photographs of the surrounding picturesque landscapes and Baspa River, and then pushed off to the hotel at Rakcham. On the way were many new upcoming hotels and homestays, which would be in future providing good options for staying for the tourists in this heaven on earth. We also saw a higher secondary school building, which reiterated the understanding that the people of Himachal valued education and understood its importance for growth while still being attached to the roots. On returning, everyone else retired to take some rest. I, on seeing the clouds, had some other plans and made an attempt to set up my photographic gear to capture a time lapse. Later on, I wandered into the village for a chat with the locals and some clicks with them, tried to lift a female's straw guttery, that is, gathered dried straw packed into a bag, into a cloth to make a baggage of it, which she was carrying on her back to make a bed for her cows. She related how proud she was of a son who was a major in the army, a daughter-in-law who was an advocate, and another son who was holding a high post in the government services. The girl who clicked us too was good in her mannerisms, and both interspersed English words fluently in the dialect, providing their cosmopolitan and open approach to life, while still valuing and preserving their own culture and societal values. We had dinner and we slept, all excited for the next morning. On fifth day, that is 19th June, we were supposed to move from Rakcham to Kalpa, which was at a distance of 44.4 kilometers, requiring a driving time of 2 hours. It was situated at an altitude of 9,710 feet, and the temperatures expected would be somewhere around 18 during the daytime and 7 degrees during the night time. I woke up early as I had planned to walk around the valley of Sangla, gathering in all that I could of the scenic beauty. The board bearing the name of the village perched against the backdrop of the colorful houses and snow-covered peaks caught my eyes as I went up to the balcony. As I waited for my cup of tea, absorbing in the beauty all around, click, click, click went my camera, capturing the snow-covered mountain peaks all around and the flowing river and birds. Soon I was on my way to walk along the path that led to the bridge on the river Baspa and beyond into the village. On the way, meeting many villagers and having a chat with them. They were on to their routine daily life. On the way, I did stop to capture the beauty of the noisy, free-flowing river. The snow-covered peaks all around as also the village life and biodiversity that I encountered on the way. As I proceeded, I reached the meadows at the end of the road on the base of mountains with pockets of clear water. The landscape gave tough competition to Switzerland, and I could proudly say that it was here that I felt at home, for here I was in my own country with my own countrymen all around. The people of Himachal were very welcoming and posed willingly for photographs. The presence of society feel was obvious, and they loved interacting and were open to conversations. As I was alone, caught hold of a honeymoon couple, as husband was busy on the phone and wife was free, and asked her to click a couple of my photographs with the background of meadows and mountains. Had to teach her the fineries of how to use the DSLR, though the settings were done by me. Zoom in, zoom out to get the pictures right. On the way back, met my batchmates proceeding to the meadows and admired the silent, watchful eyes of the mountain dog, probably seeking a pat. Had some fruits and milk for breakfast before proceeding to get the luggage loaded as we left for Kalpa. On the way visiting Kamru Fort, the oldest fort in Himachal, which lodged the Kamakhya temple built in 15th century. The temple is famous for its wooden architecture. It lodged the Kamakhya Devi. The idol is said to have been bought from Assam, and the temple is basically dedicated to Lord Badrinath. It was not easy climbing the 1,000 steps to the fort, and the clicks which we took gave us the much needed breath as we stopped to absorb in the beauty of nature that existed all around us. There were many families residing within this hill fort, and one could see the Kinnauri women doing their everyday work, and some of the older ones chatting on the steps leading to the fort. We were asked to don a Kinnauri cap and tie a gachi, a string, round our waist by a stern lady who later became friendly as we made her comfortable to a level that she even posed at the door of the temple for us. As we came down, I captured some photographs of people busy with the course of washing clothes and a couple of birds. A local, as soon as she saw me pointing the camera at him, took out his chillum, cigar, and posed for the shot, asking me to send the photograph through an routine mail. I lost my way but was not very far from others who had reached the vehicle and was soon traced and led back. On the way, we had lunch at the local market and bought Kinnauri caps, which would also serve as a memento. Kinnauri girls, that is us, were now ready to get themselves clicked, donning these caps. The tempo traveller was ready to take us to Kalpa, with a stop at the suicide point, which are vertical rocky mountains all around, and would give a straight fall if someone attempted to jump into the gorge seen from the road. A board of I Love Kinnaur was put up there, which served as an appropriate backdrop for clicks for the tourists. Kalpa is a town situated at the Sutlej Valley, and we were moving towards it, which is located on the banks of Sutlej River. It lies in the Kinnaur district. This town is famous for its apple orchards and some famous Himalayan peaks. Kinnauri apples are the passport for prosperity of Himachal and its farmers. We reached Kalpa and checked in, but the peaks were nowhere to be seen due to the thick cloud cover that could be seen. What could be seen was an expanse of apple orchards, some buildings, and a thick cover of clouds. No one could imagine, even though mentioned by the locals, what lay hidden behind the clouds till the next morning. We had our dinner, and before going to bed, I prayed to God with full faith in His decisions to clear the clouds. On 6th day, that is 20th June, we were supposed to move from Kalpa to Tabo via Nako and Puh, covering a distance of 163 kilometers. Tabo was situated at an height of 10,760 feet, and the temperatures expected were 17 degrees during the daytime and 5 degrees centigrade during the night time. We covered that distance in about 9 to 10 hours. So on 20th morning, with the excitement brewing, I got up early and peeped through the window to see if my prayers had been heard. It was around 4 a.m. in the morning and dark outside. So again lay down and tossed in the bed with impatience. Again got up at 4:30 a.m. It was still dark, but the outlines of the peaks were visible, and I thanked God for that. And hurriedly I made sincere efforts to set up my camera for a time lapse to capture the beauty of the peaks as the veil of darkness was lifting. His mercy, and with the best wishes of friends, I was able to capture the rising sun, the peaks as they came out of their veil of darkness, the wandering clouds as they changed colors with the sunrise, and the lovely natural lens flare, using a time lapse which I set up at one corner of the balcony. At the other corner, we were enthusiastically clicking some selfies and photographing each other against the famous peaks of Kalpa, when suddenly I realized that from the terrace we would get an unobstructed view of the peaks, and the peaks would be visualized in a better way. So I proceeded to the terrace for some photographs. We were able to view and photograph Kinnaur Kailash, which stands at 19,850 feet, Jurkadan, which is 21,237 feet high, Raldang, which is 19,000 feet high, Shivling, not the original one at Mansarovar, but the projection seen at Kinnaur Kailash, and Srikhand Mahadev, which was identified and pointed out by our well-read colleague Dr. Parvati Murthy. So after we were satisfied by our clicks, we proceeded to our rooms to get the luggage shifted to the tempo traveler, and we proceeded for the breakfast. We were soon proceeding to Tabo, on the way stopping at Khab, where the river Spiti meets the Sutlej. In nature, nothing is perfect, but everything is perfect. Nature sure went beyond my imagination at Sangla and Kalpa. At Khab, the river Spiti, with its greenish water, flows below the bridge to join Sutlej. It is here that we could locate and visualize the peak Riopurgil, which is 22,362 feet high, and this peak belongs to the Zanskar range of Himalayas. We spent quality time there, clicking some pictures and videos and relishing the oversweet hot tea and biscuits, and then proceeded to drive on into the cold desert that is the Spiti Valley along the river Spiti. The mountainous terrain with the winding and muddy off-roads looked forbidding and dangerous, as were the rocks jutting out from these mountains, which looked friable. We travelled along the treacherous road in the barren land to reach the oasis that is Nako, identifiable by the helipad and the greenery all around. Well-crafted barley fields were seen, which were being irrigated by channelizing snow melt water. We entered the Buddhist village and at the entrance was housed a big prayer wheel where an old female was praying, and she obliged us by posing for a photograph of hers. We then, after descending quite a few steps, proceeded to Nako Lake, which had crystal clear waters reflecting the deep blue of the sky very well, and tried to absorb in the beauty of the lake and the surroundings. Some selfies with the beautiful backdrop of lake were taken, and the youngsters motivated for some Bollywood style shots. After absorbing in the beauty all around to heart's content, we came back to the square for lunch and for shopping of local items. The government rest house had a good restaurant which provided us with freshly made aloo parathas with butter, pickle and curd. In addition to the mud houses, there were concrete buildings seen along the way that one travelled in Himachal, moving from village to village. Plenty of orchards formed the lifelines. Tourism, farming and societal values are sure adding on to the prosperity and well-being of the people of Himachal. A few of them run homestays, restaurants, and provide all that they can to the tourists during the harsh conditions when the weather is not favorable. Our driver told us that education was highly valued here, and even the remotest village had higher secondary schools. One was seen in Chitkul near the Indo-Tibetan border by us. Each and every house in Himachal has electricity, no matter how remotely it is situated. From Nako we proceeded to the Gui monastery, which housed a mummy which is 600 years old of Sangha Tenzin, a Buddhist monk from Tibet, who is said to have started his mummification process while he was alive. He was seen in sitting position with the skin and hair intact when the mummy was found. As some renovation was going on in the monastery, the mummy was housed in a small white building outside the monastery. One is made to take out one's shoes as a mark of respect before entering the Japanese-style temple and a small building that houses the mummy. Tabo, we noticed, was a small town on the banks of Spiti River. We checked into a homestay, the White Lotus by Zostel. It was a very beautiful homestay with a clean linen for a change, but the manager was very rude. After freshening up, we went for a walk through the fields to the river bank. Had a lovely time looking at the barren mountains at the base of which flowed the silent Spiti River. Satisfied with some clicks in serene surroundings, we came back to retire to bed. I opted out from dinner as I was having stomachache and some bloating, probably as a result of mountain sickness, and could not sleep the whole night. A hectic and happening day came to an end, providing us with a much more than we had sought. Nature, of course, is the healer, and it healed all that human behavior had inflicted out of ignorance. On day 7th, that is 21st June, we were supposed to move from Tabo to Kaza, covering a distance of 48 kilometers, and the travel time was 1.5 hours. We reached at an altitude of 12,500 feet, and the temperatures that we faced were 14 degrees maximum and 3 degrees centigrade minimum. After a sleepless night, was keen to get out and explore the surroundings of the homestay. As I came out of the room, the homestay looked beautiful in dim light and drawn curtains. Clicked some shots of the interior, of the staircase, of the dining room, of the paintings and pictures on the wall, before proceeding to put on my shoes, which were kept outside the homestay, for we were not allowed to wear the shoes inside. Way to the river was blocked by water for irrigation, filling up the fields, so tried out 3 other paths. In my mind, I had planned to explore for a proper path that led to the hotel for a safe exit, for the path we followed to enter the hotel was not a proper one, and one of the group members had had a bad fall, but thankfully no injury. On the way, had some stray dogs following me as I clicked to capture some flowers, birds that were flying around, to make arrangements for their breakfast and to feed their chicks and the village life. The water-filled farms with still water acted as mirrors, and I did not miss the opportunity to click the reflections of the surrounding mountains. The path was straight and well made, and I just could not get why we were led by the hotel staff through the difficult one the previous day. It was time to get back and get ready to leave Tabo for Kaza. As the manager was unable to provide us with sugar-free tea, I opted out of having breakfast too, satisfied with some biscuits that I was carrying and water. All of us safely exited through the proper path this time and boarded our tempo traveler. First stop was at the oldest monastery in the Himalayas, the Tabo Monastery, a beautiful monastery built on a level ground, unlike other monasteries which are built on hilltops. We went about capturing its beauty, and while coming out noticed an all-women group entering the monastery. With their permission, we clicked a photograph together and congratulated them for indulging in travel as a lone traveler in an all-women's group. Next stop was to be Dhankar Monastery. It is 1,000-year-old, and the word Dhankar means a fort on the cliff. It precariously stands on a friable cliff overlooking the confluence of Pen and Spiti River, and it is a UNESCO heritage site. It has a meditation cave, prayer rooms, and multiple rooms for the monks. Could not click photographs as we were not allowed to. This monastery is recognized by the World's Monument Fund as one of the most endangered sites in the world and is currently in imminent danger of collapsing. Few irregular vertical muddy structures stood behind the monastery and depicted the erosion caused by the environmental wraths and invasion that the monastery has faced. At the base of the monastery, the buildings of Dhankar village existed, which have survived the harsh conditions that prevail in the terrain. Each one was now feeling hungry, but we did not dare have it in Dhankar, for the restaurants did not look inviting, so we proceeded to Kaza. Good that we did so, for we had lunch in a wonderful restaurant serving delicious cuisines at Kaza before proceeding to check into our hotel. One interesting dish discovered here was the yogi's bowl, which one colleague had ordered, and it was simply rice, baked vegetables, and baked potato cheese mash. It looked so appealing and light in nature that we all wished that we had ordered for it. We then proceeded to check into the hotel. We were again short of a room, as one room had not been vacated by the previous occupant, and we were told that the tourist had suddenly taken ill. On management's insistence, the tourist came out and his cough, hunger for breath and history of fever for 3 days made us suspicious of COVID, so out came our masks and we opted out of taking the room. The organizer family showed a big heart by deciding to take a single room for a family of 4. The rest of the group went for exploring the market, while I tried to rest and gather energy for the next day. On day 8th, that is 22nd June, we had planned for sightseeing around Kaza, and we visited Hikkim, Komik village, Langza, and Key Monastery with Kibbar village. Hikkim was situated at an altitude of 14,400 feet and was 15.4 kilometers from Kaza. The temperatures expected were 24 degrees maximum and 3 degrees minimum. Komik stood at an altitude of 15,500 feet, was 4 kilometers away from Hikkim, and temperatures were 23 and 2 degrees centigrade. Langza stood at an altitude of 14,500 feet and was 10 kilometers from Komik village. The temperatures maximum was 24 and minimum was 3 degrees centigrade. Key Monastery was 26 kilometers from Hikkim and Kibbar village 31 kilometers from Hikkim. They stood at an altitude of 13,500 feet with temperatures ranging from 24 to 3 degrees centigrade. At Kaza, the hotel did not have a proper management groups as it was under renovation, and the 3-4 people managing it looked like labor class trying to manage a renovation and the hotel. So the food offered was awful, with lots of oil, spices and all burnt up. Luckily, we had bought fruits and milk which served as breakfast. After breakfast, we were ready to explore around Kaza. The first destination was Hikkim, where the highest operational post office of the world is located. The winding roads uphill were all off-roads, and the difficult drive with many hairpin bends gave us little opportunity to get stable, to take shots of the surrounding snow-covered peaks from the moving vehicle. Nevertheless, we did succeed in getting some good shots. The original post office is in the town. The town is surrounded by green pastures and demarcated farms. The roof of houses did not have boundaries or railings, but collected straw was put all around for safety as boundaries. The new post office had come up at a height away from the village, and tourists were incessantly pouring in here and clicking to get their best shots of posting picture postcards back home. They were being sold in the premises. I too couldn't help getting clicked posting a postcard. So then we proceeded to our tempo traveler after spending some time there, and we were off to Comic. Surrounded by snowbound mountains and majestic valleys, Comic Village is the highest village in the world, connected by a motorable road. This area is completely cut off from the rest of the country due to the heavy snowfall during the winters, and the local residents store enough food to last the winter season as they avoid getting out of their houses at this time. They use the time in making handicrafts like carpet, shawls, cap, jackets, paintings, etc. There was a monastery and the highest restaurant in the world located in Comic which served hot tea, and in that cold remote area we were obliged by the service. Comic village in Himachal Pradesh has reportedly vaccinated 100% of its population over the age of 44 years of age. We retracted the path to Hikkim from here to proceed towards Langza. Langza has a 1,000-year-old golden-colored Buddha statue surrounded by a beautiful landscape of snow-covered peaks and valleys all around, giving it a 360-degree beautiful panoramic view to the tourists. The statue overlooks the valley and seems to be blessing and protecting the valley below. Towards its back is the Chow Chow Kang Nelda Peak, forming the backdrop of the village. Some of the group members went into the village and saw that all the inhabitants were busy seeing the sky TV. Langza is said to have emerged from Tethys Sea millions of years ago, and fossils of marine plants and animals have been found here. We clicked some photographs of the captivating beauty that existed all around and moved towards our tempo traveler to proceed towards Key Monastery. All through Hikkim, Comic and Langza, I had been looking for children but did not succeed, as I wanted to take some photographs of the children as I found them cute. Had brought some drawing books and chocolates for them, for I wanted to capture some candid shots of emotions. Our driver said that probably I would succeed in meeting some in Key Monastery, as he had seen children playing often at the base of the monastery. As we approached the monastery, it was seen beautifully perched atop of a cliff, standing tall against the deep blue sky. To my dismay, there were no children but young adults playing volleyball at the monastery, and I did click some shots. The murals at the monastery were beautiful, and prayers were going on in a hall by monks who directed us to circle the deity through sign language. There were numerous rooms for the monks. As we climbed up to the topmost story, a monk offered us green sweetened lemon tea. We asked him if they had children in the monastery, and he too pointed at the ones playing downstairs. I then asked a straight question about the age at which monks joined the monastery, and the reply was 4 years. I inquired if I could meet them. He asked for the purpose, and I told him about my wish. He said that they would come in the evening, and if I believed him, could hand over the items, and he will distribute it amongst the children. I had no reason to disbelieve, so I handed over everything, satisfied that the children would get it, but regretted me missing a chance to click their smiles, joy, and inquisitive eyes. We then returned to Kaza to have lunch in the same fairly chic restaurant, as all wished to try the yogi's bowl, which had boiled rice, plenty of baked vegetables, and baked mashed potato with cheese and ginger ale for drinks. It was shopping time now, and we went about the market, buying some caps, foot warmers, woolen socks, fruits, bread, and milk for breakfast the next day, for we had to move by 7:30 the next morning, and we knew we would not be served breakfast by the naive and clumsy staff. Went to bed thinking if I was a traveler or a tourist, and I leave it to you to make the judgment, for my thirst for discovering all that Spiti had to offer was not satiated, and the thirst had only increased, but must admit that a sense of fulfillment did dawn. On day 9th, that is 23rd June, we were supposed to move to Chandratal from Gaza via Chicham Bridge and Kunzum Pass. Chandratal was at an altitude of 14,100 feet, while Chicham Bridge was at an altitude of 13,596 feet, and Kunjum Pass at 15,100 feet. The total distance that we were required to cover was 100 kilometers, 75 kilometers to Kunjum Pass, and the driving time was about 5 to 7 hours. The temperatures expected were 15 degrees during the daytime and -4 during the night time. We boarded our tempo traveler and moved to a camp at Chandratal along Spiti and then Chandra River at the base of Chandrabhaga ranges. On the way, passing the Chicham Bridge, the bridge was at a staggering height of 13,596 feet, and it connected two villages named Chicham and Kibber. Chicham Bridge was constructed over a course of 15 years and was inaugurated in 2017. It costed a whopping 485.50 lakh rupees to get the bridge constructed. It is built over a gorge which houses a tributary to Spiti River. This bridge cuts down the journey from Kibber to Losar by 40 kilometers. We stopped here to have a look around and get ourselves clicked with the bridge providing the backdrop. I tried my hand at trick photography here, and my friends obliged me with the wonderful poses as each one was enjoying being part of the mischief. We left Kibber behind and moved towards Kunjum Pass, which was at 15,100 feet, and it connected the Lahore and Spiti valleys. We stopped at Losar for a cup of tea and were in awe of how comfortably people lived with meager meals. A young kid of the owner of the restaurant, the lady was running the restaurant, the young lad was listening to Nanna Munna Rahi Hu Desh Ka Sipahi Hu on mobile, and his intent of protecting the country was obvious by the gun he seemed to be carrying made of a straw. I offered him apples, which he willingly accepted, saluted his mother, and took her permission to share the video of the young would-be soldier. I did forward the video to her too on her request.
Julie. Julie. Oh. Oh.
मर गया
ये मर गया लगता है, ये हॉर्स मर गया, हिल नहीं रहा ना, उसकी सांस नहीं चल रही।
चल रही है लास्ट में बीच में
घोड़ों का जब पेट दर्द हो रहा शुरू हो जाता है ना, तब ये बचते नहीं, जो इंटेस्टाइनल जो कॉलिक है ना, ये जो इंटेस्टाइनल कॉलिक होती है ना हॉर्सेज में, हमारे बीएसएफ में जो वेटरनरी सर्जन से
On the way, we did see some yaks and ibex and their play, and also got some breathtaking views of Chandrabhaga ranges. As we reached Kunjum Pass, the colorful prayer flags worn all around Kunjum Mata temple provided a spectacular sight for a photographer against the deep blue sky and snow-covered peaks. Everyone got busy clicking selfies, and I too clicked the beauty all around with my ears open to all the stories that were being narrated about the place by the tourists around. From here, we again boarded our vehicle to cross some hairpin bends to reach our campsite at the base of Chandratal Lake. We checked into our tents and immediately left for the lake. The vehicles were stopped quite a distance away, and we had to trek about 1.5 kilometers to view the deep blue Chandratal Lake. I was helped by the youngsters of the group by opting to carry my purse as I had a heavy camera too. I did manage to click the bearded vulture and the bronze mountain finch, even though my reflexes had gone slow. Tired me had missed 2 nights of sleep, so sat down by the lake and decided to make a time lapse if others opted to go round the lake. The look at the lake brought peace to my soul. I sat down to rest and capture in the beauty in my eyes, mind, and camera. We decided to go back after about half an hour at the site, as suddenly it had become cloudy and rains were imminent. I now share the time lapses which I had captured. Before leaving, we did check out all around us for any trash that we had spilled, and we remembered the famous saying, "Take nothing but pictures and leave nothing but footprints." Some of us did go around the lake to view the beautiful meadows on the other side, but I decided to stay put. I was again helped by the Colonel doctor couple who offered to carry my bag back as I trudged back slowly to the tempo traveler, both slowing their pace to accompany me. All were tired and wanted to have a cup of hot tea to fight the cold. As there was no electrical supply in the tents and it was dark inside, we all gathered in the dining area and ordered tea and pakoras. The light was only supplied from 8 to 10 pm as there was no electricity in the area, and the tents were managed by solar power. Many young tourists were there inside the dining area, and we all played Antakshari by singing Bollywood songs in chorus as we waited for the tea and the pakoras. We then went to our tents to take some rest as soon as the lights were on. Dinner was served at 9 pm and consisted of tasty rajma chawal. As the others went to sleep, I wanted to try my hand at astral photography for the first time. I set up my camera on the tripod and took a few shots to judge the exposures and adjust the settings, and waited till 10 pm when the lights would go off to take the final shot. I succeeded in catching the stars but not the galaxy. Actually, part of the galaxy was captured, not the complete, as from the premises the angle to shoot was not appropriate and would have to go more than a kilometer out of the premises to get the right angle, which was not possible. Had a good sleep after 2 sleepless nights at the camp, with 2 quilts as the temperature dipped down to -4 during the night. On day 10th, that is 24th June, we were supposed to move from Chandratal to Manali, descending to an altitude of 6,730 feet from an altitude of more than 14,000 feet. So the temperatures were warmer here, 25 degrees during the daytime and 18 degrees during the night time. The distance between Chandratal to Manali via Atal Tunnel was 100 kilometers. So I got up early at Chandratal after a good night's sleep and came to know that there was no water in the taps, as the water had frozen because the temperatures during the night hours had gone to -4 degrees centigrade. I had filled a thermos with hot water for the night and used it for morning course. As I came out, I noticed that the tents were covered with a thin film of snow. The mesmerizing mountain peaks against the dark blue sky, the colorful tents, and the multicolored prayer flags caught my eyes as I was moving towards the dining hall for warm water to take my medicines. I was refused for water and told that I would get it only at 7 am, but after some pestering got a glass of water as I told him it was for taking my medicines. After finishing my packing and taking my medicines, I got out of the tent to capture the beauty that existed all around and took some shots and videos of the snow-covered mountains all around. The drivers had started their vehicles for the fear that they would not start when we were supposed to move. Soon the luggage was sent to be loaded onto the tempo traveller and we were on our way to Manali via Batal, Gramfu and Atal Tunnel. Till Gramfu, the road was at its worst. It was all off-road and it appeared that tarmac was never laid here. We travelled on pebbles, rocks, boulders, mud and uneven off-roads. At places it was literally just close to the river, and in rainy season one could imagine that one would literally be travelling on the riverbed. Streams, waterfalls and water from the glaciers came down on the road at places, and that was the main cause for the state of road. The thought of what would happen if it had rained or if it would start raining was enough to cause an adrenaline rush. But we were fortunate that nature god was on our side. On the way, we came across Ibex and blue sheep flocks. Each flock was guarded by a shepherd and 2 dogs. We had to stop at places till they passed us. These roadblocks were much entertaining than those that we face in towns due to traffic jams. At Batal, we had a tea break at a dhaba where many tents had been set up. Quite a few trekkers and motorcyclists had taken refuge in these tents. We then proceeded to Gramfu. The way displayed all the natural beauty that one could expect to see. snow-covered peaks rising against bright blue sky, slender streams making their way down, waterfalls, and melting glaciers on both sides of the road, at places even rising above the height of our tempo traveler. After Gramfu, the tarmac road reappeared. We were now excited as we were approaching the 9.02-kilometer Atal Tunnel, which is the longest highway tunnel present above 10,000 feet in the world. What a marvel it was, and driving through it was a dream come true. On coming out of Atal Tunnel, we were greeted by the Pir Panjal range, and the sudden change in landscape from cold desert to carpeted green mountains at the base and snow at the top with pine trees reappearing gave a soothing feel. We proceeded to our hotel on a hilltop which had a wonderful view of Pir Panjal range and had apple orchards all around. In the evening, the group went down to the Manali market, which was very crowded like any other market of the towns and did not appear to be a tourist place. I felt suffocated and was irked by my own wrong decision to come down after the soothing heavenly travel of River Spiti. Soon we were back and I was busy taking long exposure shots of Manali, all lit up against Pir Panjal range. Retired early to get up early, as had planned to make a time lapse of Manali as the sun rose to push the darkness away, exposing the snow-covered peaks and the city at the base of the range. Travel definitely is an investment into yourself, and it was coming to an end as we would be leaving for Chandigarh the next morning. Was a bit uneasy, but the joy of returning home soon made me overcome it. So as decided, the next morning at Manali I got up early to make a time lapse. The sun rays gradually lit up the Pir Panjal and then gradually the Manali city. We had our breakfast and started for Chandigarh at 9 a.m. Driving along the fiery river Vyas, the travel was mostly in hilly areas and a few kilometers of plain. We had our lunch at a restaurant on our way where we clicked some pictures to demonstrate how elated we were to complete the journey. We reached Chandigarh at 7:30 p.m. On the way, I decided to cancel my train ticket to Moradabad for it was at 9 p.m. the next day and the whole day would be wasted, and it booked a taxi for the next morning. I stayed back at CRPF officers' mess, and in the excitement of getting home, I got up early and clicked the beautiful morning as I waited for my taxi. I was soon on my way to Moradabad and reached Moradabad late evening, thanked the driver, paid him, and thus ended an unplanned outing which was decided at the last moment. I was indeed grateful for all the valuable lessons learnt on the trip, the most important being life is simple until we insist on making it complicated.